Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Makeover Monday.
And welcome to Raghunath's birthday.
And it's my birthday on Makeover Monday.
Congratulations there, guy. Happy birthday.
55 years old today. It's going to be the best year. I've made that commitment.
Yeah.
Part of my Makeover Monday, which I started last week, was cold showers every morning. It's how I wake up. I do pranayama, and then I take my cold shower, and it's been great.
Why the cold shower?
Well, first of all, one of these things that gets you, there's a lot of health benefits with cold shower. You know, we did them when we were brahmacharis, when we were monks, every day for years. And it was one of those things. It was almost like there was like an ego behind it. We don't take, we only take cold showers. And I remember being in Philadelphia when there was so cold out, and that temple sometimes would not have any heat in it.
That temple was cold.
There was a few times it got so cold, the heat just stopped working, and we would go to the morning artik at 4:30 in our sleeping bags. It was so cold.
Juna knows, right?
Huh?
What was they call that thing? The freezeway in between the two buildings?
Oh,
right?
the breezeway. That's funny. That's right. Lear Juna knows. But anyway, so there's a lot of health benefits, but it's also one of the beautiful benefits is it gets you right out of your mind.
Okay.
Like it's like no more like on the mental platform, no like easing into the day. It's like you just walk right in. You just walk right in and you just deal with it, and it's like very powerful.
Okay. So it's been good for you, bringing that back.
Really good. I'm going to do it every day, at least this month.
Okay.
It's part of my makeover. Makeover Mondays have been like great for me. I really appreciate them. Sometimes those New Year's resolutions, they go, oh, all right, I didn't do it. And now what? I've ruined the year. But I love checking in every Monday and say, okay, what am I going to add this life? And I've just made a commitment that 55 is going to be my best year.
Okay.
56 is going to be a mess.
When you say that, what does that mean? It's going to be your best year? Like you're going to try your best, or?
Yeah, I'm going to really try my best to up my game.
Right. I have a question for you.
Sure, Prabhu.
Now that you have, on the completion of your first 55 journeys around the sun, what wisdom have you garnered for us? Share something with us on this day. Speak.
Well. Okay, the wisdom hot seat. I think the first thing is anything I got from somebody else. Therefore, if there's a lot of if someone appreciates me for something, I can't take the credit for it. Oh, and it's part of like Vaishnav culture is we sort of deflect the credit. Whereas in my material consciousness, I always want credit. Hey, I'm taking a cold shower, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. Check me out. It's like we're eager for credit. And in Vaishnav culture, it's like anything we have going for us that even anybody appreciates, we really got inspired from somebody else.
So deflect the credit. No
deflect the
advice.
credit, and give appreciation for everybody who's come into your life and has given you something worthy, and appreciate and appreciate the teachers in your life. So
Yeah,
I think that's a big part of wisdom is we are made up of the mercy of other people. How did like That's
I
a
like
nice
it.
little
I like it.
phrase.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you for that. For
oh,
that
thank you.
nugget.
That's like the biggest nugget. Another one is not to criticize people. That's like the huge. That's a massive one. I was reading the Chaitanya Bhagavat the other day, and it's just like drills this point again and again.
Was it
Cri-
the
cr- first, criticizing devotees is like that is like a spiritual sinkhole to criticize a devotee, and you got to be very careful in um, discerning and criticism. It's one thing to discern, but criticism is when we indulge in the shortcomings of other people, or we can't even notice their good faults because I'm so insecure about my own life that I have to project shortcomings on them. And sometimes when a devotee does something, a spiritualist does something in the name of discerning and just being, checking things out, what I'm really doing is I'm digging into them, or I'm like fluffing out their bad qualities and sharing it with other people, even in the name of like, well, I care about this person. It's really problematic, and it's something I have to work on because I was brought up in a culture of sarcasm and snarkiness, and it's not a good thing. My bad qualities don't work well in spiritual circles, so that's something I want to pay attention to. And even people, it's not just devotees. Chaitanya Bhagavat was saying, even everybody has God in their heart. So to really criticize anyone and not see their spiritual nature is very problematic for our spiritual growth. And it was great. I was listening to this on YouTube while jogging, and I kept on like, YouTube, you have to bang it twice to make it. I just kept on playing this thing and repeat and repeat and repeat, and just like goes. The author just goes on and on about criticism of the criticism and the problems with criticism.
Hmm. Well,
It was
there's that verse. It's verse 5 in the book Upadeshamrita, the Nectar of Instruction by Rupa Goswami.
love that book. Love
Love
that
that
book.
book. It's
If
short,
no one's
small little
read that
book.
book, you should just. It's a small, easy read.
Yeah,
Nectar of Instruction, it's called.
yeah. And in the 5th verse, he describes how a bhakti yogi, a Vaishnava, how they um, honor, you could say, different other bhakti yogis on different levels of realization. Right? And he says one should mentally honor one who chants the name of Lord Krishna.
Mm.
Right? Even if you got all kind of bad qualities, but if you're doing that, I'm going to mentally honor you.
Mentally honor. That's a
One,
nice one.
one should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation and is engaged in worshiping the deity. Someone who's practicing, with some
Get it more serious.
sincerity and regularity. Yeah. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee. So now we're going to hear like that the highest level devotee, right? One should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service, advanced in bhakti. And then it describes, and then he could have used any description to describe this person further, right? But this is what he says: and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others,
Ooh.
right?
That like could have used any description, but that was the description.
And that's what he
Heart
chose.
is. Say that again. Heart
Heart
is.
is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So, like you're saying, there is discernment, and even this is a verse about discernment, right? It's like you're
Sure.
trying to discern, like, how I should relate to to people of different qualities or people, but it's another thing. I think the way that you're using the word criticize and the way that it's being used here, it's being defined. One way to define it, one way to understand it is when they're not seeking pleasure out of someone else's faults. They're not feeling
Right.
better by wallowing in and trying to enjoy someone else's shortcomings, whether it's factual or not factual, those shortcomings, right? Because as you begin to enjoy it, you begin to, see everybody's, imagined shortcomings too. But that was, the person whose heart is full of spiritual happiness, they take no joy in that.
Can I tell a good story about the snake and the king and the Brahmin?
All right, let's hear
It's a
it.
good. It's a good
This
one.
is your day, man.
Snake and the king and the Brahmin. And
I don't know. I don't know if
find
I know this one. The snake and the king and the Brahmin.
Well, there's a Brahmin. Mara knows it. There was a
So
Brahmin.
what's a Brahmin? Just so the
Okay.
episode
So there's a king. First, there's a king. We all know what a king is, and the king wants to put on a special feast for all the priests in the village.
okay.
So all the priests in the village were sitting around, and he had this beautiful feast. And while the feast was going on, there was a bird carrying a snake in its talons flying
Okay.
over the feast. And so the dead snake had some venom that dripped out of his mouth and landed on one of the Brahmin's plates, right into the
Oh,
the chutney,
how
right into the
unfortunate.
it went into the chutney. And then so the Brahmin ate the chutney and he died. And
Whoa.
so, Krishna, God, doesn't punish you, but the material world is a place of like reaping results. And the
Okay.
person who's in charge of that, the higher being that's in charge of that is Yamaraj.
Okay.
Or the
Just one before we go further. Where does this story come from? Just so that I can know how deeply to invest my faith in it.
I don't know. I don't know. where it
You
comes
don't know. Okay. Thank you. That helps. Okay. Please continue.
See, because Kaustubha did something interesting. It's good to know. He wants to know the source.
What's the source?
Now, Kaustubha is one of these people that like he won't take it that seriously unless he understands. And it's a good quality. It's like I want to hear where the source is from. Is it
It's getting
bona fide? Was it-
interesting. Yeah.
But sometimes, even if they're non-sourceable, and I think Brijbasis, people who live in Vrindavan, they know this. Like sometimes things are not sourceable. They're like village
Talk.
stories, village
Yeah,
talk.
village
No,
stories.
not just village talk, but village stories.
Mhm.
But if they still come to the same conclusion,
Okay. Fair enough.
that's right. That's reasonable.
Yeah. I have complete faith that there will be wisdom shared through this. I will.
Yeah, I think there is. And that's why I'm saying it. Not just because it's a fantastic, story about kings and poison.
It's just, but because it had those elements, I just wanted to check in.
Yeah. But you can see right where his brain goes to. It goes right to, is this an authorized story or did you just make this up or hear it on the internet or whatever? So
Okay.
let me share. So king, snake, venom falling in chutney. The
Dead
Brahmin eats it. And
That's a
dies.
real inauspicious thing when there's a dead Brahmin suddenly in your feast, right?
Yeah. When you're having a feast and a Brahmin dies. And so Yamaraj, who's the king of the Yamas, he decides, well, who's going to get the karma for killing this Brahmin? And so Yamaraj doesn't work alone because everybody in the spiritual world has friends. Isn't that interesting? Everybody's got a team. Just like in a
check in.
corporation, there's like a team. Okay, here's our team. Here's our finance team, our human resources team. Sort of Yamaraj is sort of human resources. And so he's maybe the first analogy ever used for Yamaraj like that, by the way.
Right. But so he's got to determine who's responsible.
Yeah, and his people. So he's like, well, who do you guys think should get responsibility for this? And one of his people goes, well, definitely the snake.
The snake.
The snake. It's his venom. It's like the snake. Why would the snake take the karma for that? The snake's dead. And so then another one said, well, no, definitely the bird. The dead bird is carrying and he's flying right over the feast.
That was
He said,
irresponsible.
completely irresponsible. And Yamaraj said, well, no, not the bird. The bird's just eating a snake. He didn't drop it on the Brahmin. He's just eating a snake. And the third Yamaduta, or the servant of Yamaraj, said, well, definitely the king. The king's holding the feast. He goes, the king was just being charitable. And so Yamaraj is like, all right, we're going to have to think about this. We can't give anybody the karma for this one. So a few weeks, we're going to have to pause on the karma.
Sometimes you have to.
So-
Sometimes it's wise to pause.
Sometimes pausing is important.
Mm.
It's not just like you're letting go of something. Sometimes it's important to think about things, hear all the circumstances,
Mhm.
let it all sift through. Huh?
What do they call it? Like when you're cooking something, like you not saute in it, but there's some when you
Bask,
what is it,
bait-
Mary?
no.
When you leave something in
simmer.
not simmer. Not, it's not even cooking, but like when it's just soaking in something.
Based.
Marinate. That's it.
Marinate,
Vivi
yeah.
got it. Marinate.
Marinate.
Yeah, you have to
Based. What's
marinate
based?
in it for a little
What's
while, right?
basting? What's basting? Is that a cooking word? Did I
Yeah,
make
it's a
that word
cooking
up?
word too. No, it's a cooking word.
Okay.
It's when you like take the liquid and pour it back over whatever the dish you're making
Usually
is.
it's
basting.
done in an unmentionable kind of circumstances.
Unmentionable. Okay.
All right,
Can I
so they
continue? All right,
marinate.
let me wind up with
Yamaraj is
some more
marinating.
So Yamaraj is marinating this idea. Who's going to get the punishment for this? And it turns out a few weeks later, there were some pilgrims going to this town. And there was a
Same
fork.
town?
Same time, they're going to see where this, this king, within this kingdom, there was a great temple. So some pilgrims are going to this temple. And on the way there into this town, there was a fork in the road, and an old lady was sitting at this fork. And some pilgrims go to this lady and they say, hey, we're trying to find this particular kingdom where there's a temple. And the lady goes, which way do we go? And the lady said, you mean the kingdom where the king kills the Brahmins? That kingdom?
Oh, that's cold.
That kingdom? It's right over here. And then the
Oh.
Yamadutas and Yamaraj said, now we know who we're going to give the karma to
Oh.
for the killing of that Brahmin.
Just,
So
that's a great story. I love that. Go ahead.
Oh, good.
Purport.
So the purport here is when we accuse a person who we didn't even know, we don't even know the truth of it, but we're accusing that person anyway and finding fault in that person anyway. When we accuse a person who did a crime and we're relishing in that, we take on some of that karma. When we relish the unfortunate situation of somebody else, like, yeah, they're finally getting their karma, that jerk, that's a problem for us. To enjoy the punishment of somebody else, that person's suffering. Instead, the feeling should be, I pray for this person. I hope this person, like in a Christ-like way, where I pray for these people, for they do not know what they are doing. He's actually Christ is compassionate for his murderers. But if the person didn't even commit the crime, and we're actually blaming them, then we take on all of that karma. So criticism on any level has a deep problem. It's a spiritual sinkhole.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm so grateful that you took birth 55 years ago and are here to share this. That was really good. I like that one. Where did you hear? Do you remember where you heard it? Anyway, maybe you
I've
don't
got
know
like
the
a
story.
storehouse of information that sometimes pops into my head and sometimes goes back into the chambers.
I'm going to remember that story, and I'm going to share it in the future, and you will be the source.
What's great about spiritual life, if you hear something, you can share it. You can just give it away to somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's not copyright infringement.
Right. Love it.
And any other place in the material world that's copyright infringement. Someone told me, is the King of Hearts told me, he took a class, a yoga class, a training. And at the end of the training, the teacher said, okay, all this stuff I shared that I was written down, I think it was like a yoga nidra. Anything that was shared, written down, you're not allowed to share this with anyone else because it's mine. I was like, you're kidding.
Oh, God.
She said that on the last hour of the last day of the training, you can't share any of this stuff. It's all copyrighted. And you have to I have to approve it. If you're going to share anything I said, I have to approve that stuff. Or else my husband's a lawyer and we're actually going to come after you. Imagine taking a training like that. What's it for? My own personal thing? I'm just going to apply all that you to my own life. We want our students to become more empowered than us. That's like the desire. Take it all. Take it all. Do it better than I do. Die with this information. All right. So we're in the third canto, everybody.
We're
Isn't that
starting.
great?
Yeah.
Very exciting. Let's say our secretive mantras.
Okay. Why are they
Narayanam
secretive? They should be sharing.
What?
You're just talking about it. Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry about that.
Sure.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya. Bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is established, loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana-tamarandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chaksurunmidatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual masters who have opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance, with the ointment of knowledge.
Ointment.
Hey, Mara, while Kaustubha is given a little summary of the third canto, which we're going to start with today, can you just look up Saraswati? And I want to hear some info on Saraswati.
Sure.
Okay. Kaustubha, and then
Yeah.
just, raise your hand or something and tell us when you're ready.
All right. I got something on Wikipedia if you'd like
Already?
it. Yeah.
Goddess of
Okay.
learning.
I mean, we praise her every day. I want to get to know Saraswati better.
All right.
I know she's the goddess of music and learning.
Yep. She's a Hindu goddess of knowledge, music, art, speech, wisdom, and learning. She's part of the trinity of Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Parvati. All of the three forms help the trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva to create, maintain, and regenerate the universe, respectively.
She's married to Brahma,
That's right.
but isn't she sometimes married to Vishnu? That's weird.
I don't see anything about that.
No, all right. Okay.
Is that
Okay.
good or?
That's good.
Okay.
We'll take that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it is proper that we honor her before studying Bhagavatam.
Well, any type of knowledge comes from Saraswati. She's the source of knowledge.
Mhm.
So any book that is like, we don't put books on the floor because they're sources of knowledge,
Mhm.
and therefore, it's an expansion of Saraswati Devi.
All right.
What do you think of that?
I appreciate it.
Okay. Give us some knowledge.
So, last chapter, before our long recap, we ended in the sages were there. Shaunaka Rishi was questioning, or Shaunaka Rishi, here's text 48, and the last few verses from the last chapter. Shaunaka Rishi, after hearing all about creation, inquired from Sutta Goswami about Vidura, right? Because he had talked about Vidura. He said, who had previously informed him how Vidura left home, leaving aside all his relatives who were very difficult to leave. Shaunaka Rishi said, let us know, please, what topics were discussed between Vidura and Maitreya, who talked on transcendental subjects and was inquired by Vidura and replied by Maitreya. Also, please let us know the reason for Vidura's giving up the connection of his family members and why he again came home. Please also let us know the activities of Vidura while he was in the places of pilgrimage. So Vidura becomes a subject. And then Sutta Goswami replies, I shall now explain to you these very subjects that were explained by the great sage, meaning Shukadev Goswami, in answer to King Parikshit's inquiry. Please hear attentively. So that's where we pick up at the beginning of the third canto, right? But third canto is going to be an absolutely beautiful, fascinating, full of rich information. There's 33 chapters in the canto, which is that's bigger than the first two, right? The first 4 chapters will describe Uddhava meeting Vidura. Uddhava is a great character. We're going to hear about him. Vidura is a great character. 5 through 12 is Maitreya is going to be describing to Vidura creation in greater detail than we've heard yet. 13 through 19 will be a fascinating description of the first, I guess it's the first kind of, I don't know, I should be careful, but I think the first Leela avatar in the universe, which is Lord Varaha, where the Lord takes on the form of a very powerful...
I like how you say, I got to be careful about this.
Well, you're doing it publicly, someone's going to get on my case. But the Lord takes on the form of a fascinating, very powerful boar to save the earth, right? We're going to hear about that.
We mean an actual pig boar,
A
not
boar.
a boar. The Lord is
Not
never
boring.
boring.
He wasn't boring. He was anything but boring. And then chapters 20 through 24 will describe an incredible yogi and his incredible wife, right? Kardama Muni and Devahuti, and how they lived. His whole, his yogic practice and the depth of her yoga practice, and then their
So
kind of
interesting.
romantic adventures.
We talk about yoga. Here we have the oldest literature in the world speaking about yoga always existing.
Yeah.
Like when did yoga begin? It's always been here.
Well, these are the original people in the universe, kind of. These are like the first, like the third generation of people here. Like Kardama movie.
And they're great yogis.
Yeah,
and they're great yogis.
And then their child, who takes birth as the child of Kardama and Devahuti?
Avatar.
Yes.
What's the avatar's name?
Mahajan as well. Kapila Dev.
Oh, Kapila.
There you go.
Yeah, my daughter quizzed me. Name the 12 Mahajans, and I couldn't think. I had a mental Mahajan block. I was like, Prahlad.
Yeah, Prahlad's in there. Yeah.
Prahlad,
Kapila.
All right. I'm going to do this right now. The
Oh,
12, and this is a good thing to learn. You can whip this out at a Krishna conscious party. Who are the 12 Mahajans? Here I go.
Mm-hmm.
Bhishma Dev. Mahajan means like a great jana. A jana is like a person. Who are the great people of the universe? Because whenever you question something, you have to say, do the Mahajans believe in this? Will the Mahajans endorse this?
Authoritative kind of sources they become, right? Like,
okay,
yeah.
Here we go. Bhishma Dev.
1.
Prahlad.
2.
Kapila.
3.
Janak, Lord Sita's father.
Mm-hmm.
I've only got 4.
That 55-year-old.
Yudhisthira. Vidura?
It's Vidura? I don't think so.
Mara says no. Vidura. I'm struggling.
You need help, or you want to do it yourself?
I'd like to call a friend.
Phone in a friend.
What's that? What's that called? Phone a friend. Mara knows these, I think.
Mara?
I taught them to her, then I forgot them.
Manu, Svayambhanu.
Svayambhuva Manu. That's a
Manu, first person of the universe. Okay, yeah, Manu.
Shiva.
Yep.
Shiva.
Yes.
The 4 Kumars.
4 Kumars. They only count as 1.
But they only
I
count
know.
as 1.
I always wish they count as 4.
It's like, can't we be recognized individually? Nope. Sorry, guys.
Narada Muni.
Narada Muni.
And Bali.
Bali Maharaj.
How many are we at? We're at 9?
I think that's 10 or so.
10.
Did you say Prahlad?
I said Prahlad.
Okay, and then Kapila.
Yamaraj. Did we say?
Yamaraj, Kapila. I think that's it.
Oh, no, I didn't say that. That was good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we got them all.
Okay.
All right. That was good.
Teamwork.
So
there's something fun about Vedic trivia that is like, could be an incredible TV show, truthfully.
It could be. Someday it will be.
I would watch Vedic Jeopardy any day.
Well, at my guru's Vyasa Puja ceremonies, which were like his birthday ceremonies, sometimes we would have like a competition like this.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, in the afternoon after the feast and everything like that. It was kind of like
fun.
more relaxed. And I remember one year, you see, people would hate it because they would get, it was such a hot seat. You're there not only in front of like an entire huge community, but in front of your guru, you're like,
Yeah.
and if you're getting all the questions wrong. And one year he said, okay, there are 2 options. People presented options. Like, we could have like the quiz trivia game right now, or we could like just all like have watermelon or something like that. It was down in Texas. It's real hot down there,
Everybody loves trivia.
No, because everyone's afraid.
Everybody went for the watermelon?
Yeah, everyone's being afraid to put on the hot seat. And then, so everyone voted it down. And then my guru said, anyway, we're doing the trivia game. Yeah.
Well, my kids love it. As soon as we get in the car, they say, let's do trivia.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of good trivia from the 3rd canto. And in chapters 25 through 33 will be the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev, right? The son of Devahuti, on yoga. Fascinating, just rich, chapters about yoga and about Bhakti-yoga. Really great stuff. So we'll get to all that, but we start off hearing about Vidura because this is the person who's going to be asking the questions for the next two cantos, right? Two big cantos, and so like we said, first level of conversation, we were just reading. The sages at Naimisharanya are questioning Sutta Goswami. Sutta Goswami refers to the conversation between Pariksit questioning Shukadev Goswami. And now Shukadev Goswami for these two cantos is going to go down to that third level and describe the questions between Vidura. First, Vidura questions Uddhava, and then Vidura mostly will be questioning Maitreya.
Well, we remember when Vidura got kicked out of the kingdom by Jrastra.
Yeah.
And so now he's on pilgrimage in the Himalayas.
Yep.
And he's taking that as a blessing. His life, he could say, "My life is falling apart," and instead he's saying, "Kicked out of the kingdom. This is God's hand telling me I'm going to go on pilgrimage." It's such a great thing. Like, I could be miserable. I can complain. I've done everything for my brother, and he's kicking me out of the kingdom. And instead of like having no resentment in his heart at all, he's just saying, "Okay, this is a divine hand, and I'm going to go on pilgrimage." And in pilgrimage, he meets incredible, interesting people.
That's
Comes back and enlightens everyone. We're going to hear about that too.
Okay, so why don't we start reading from text 1? Let's read text 1 through 16 today if we can.
Great. Sukadeva Goswami said, after renouncing his prosperous home and entering into the forest, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of His Grace Maitreya Rishi. By the way, we highly encourage everybody to listen on Audible or purchase the Mahabharata. We like the translation by Krishna Dharma. If you're not, have you even heard that yet? It's such a good book.
I haven't done that. I really got to do that.
Oh, it's so good. Like I said, my kids love hearing it in the car. But anyway,
he reads it personally.
You know what? He's got a narrator, and truthfully, the narrator's good.
Okay, that's my question.
The narrator's very good. Yeah. It's all about a good narrator. Yeah. And I will say that when you read the Mahabharata, that first chapter of the Gita, which is very confusing with a lot of names, it means more. You know what I mean? When you know the backstory of the Bhagavad Gita, because the Bhagavad Gita is one chapter in the Mahabharata. So when you know the backstory of the Mahabharata, when Krishna and Arjuna talk about who do you see on the battlefield,
and he's every name means
Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Vikarna, and it's all these names are coming at you. And if you're new to Vedic culture or Bhakti, and you open up that first canto or first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, you're like, I can't read this. This is too many names. It's all foreign. I don't even know what auspicious means. I'm not going to read this, and it can be very discouraging. So it's such a good backstory. So now as we're reading the Bhagavatam and we hear about Vidura, if you've read the Mahabharata, you are in love with Vidura. He's such a cool person. He was the brother of the kings, and he wasn't quite gonna be a king, but he was a great minister. So after renouncing his prosperous home and entering in the forest, this Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of His Grace Maitreya Rishi. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter the house as if it were his own, and he did not take any care of Duryodhana's house.
Yeah.
So he didn't. Yeah.
When it says he didn't take care of it, I think it means like he didn't have any particular affection for it.
He didn't visit that house so much.
He didn't visit that house.
But he would come regularly to the Pandavas.
And Duryodhana's house was so opulent, and Dushasana's house, where Krishna was invited to stay, is like even more opulent than Duryodhana's. But Krishna wasn't interested in those. He wanted to go to Vidura's place.
Yeah, which is a great sign. Invite Krishna into your home, no matter if it's a simple apartment, a humble home. And I've seen this too. I've traveled around the world, been invited to people's homes who have just like simple homes, but it's obvious that Krishna is the center of that home, and it becomes like a palace. It becomes like this is something very magical is happening here.
An ashram.
It becomes like an ashram. It becomes a sacred space.
Yeah.
Just same with yoga studios,
Sure. And I think that's part of what Shukadev Goswami is saying here to Maharaj Pariksit, who's coming from that household, right? He's coming from the household of the Pandavas. And he's saying, because the question is, why would Vidura leave if it was such a great place? He had such great relatives and everything. Well, why would he go?
Best way to invite Krishna into your house: chant, sing. Get that harmonium and start singing, chanting in your house. Put a little picture of Krishna in the house. Sing to the pictures. You know what I mean? It actually works. It becomes a sacred space immediately. Anybody who walks into that house and hears you singing, very powerful. It lands in their hearts. Okay. The king asked Sukadeva Goswami. So Prickett is asking this question to the naked teenager
Sadhu.
Mahajan. Sukadeva Goswami.
We missed that one.
That's the one we forgot.
Okay.
Where and when did the meeting and the discussion take place between the Saint Vidura and His Grace Maitreya Muni? Kindly oblige, my lord, and describe this to us. Where did they meet?
Where?
Saint Vidura was a great sage and a pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to His Grace Maitreya Rishi must have been very purposeful.
Yes.
Right? You notice with sadhus, they don't just talk. Like I just tend to talk. I'll talk if there's dead air. I'll just feel like, well, it's my responsibility to fill up this air with my sound vibration.
But the things you share are of the highest level, and they're proved by learned circles. Why is that so funny?
Me and Kaustubha are on the rickshaw in Vrindavan going downtown. And I remember I was like, oh, look at that hotel. Oh, look at this. We just got we were just going to some temple downtown. And I was just like, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. And he looked at me, he goes, you just can't stop talking, can you? And I actually, at that moment, no, you said it with affection, but at that moment I realized, oh yeah, I'm just like, ba 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 ba. But you know what? There's no making the curly tail of a dog straight. No matter how many, if the dog is laying down, you could put books on the tail to sort of hold the tail down. As soon as you move those books, the tail's going to go back curly again. That's just part of you can't change your nature artificially. All you can do is dump spiritual information in your ears and in your mind and in your senses. And then what'll happen is what will come out, hopefully, will be spiritual things out of your mouth. And you and I know both. We know people who are big mouths, but they're very, very spiritually conscious. And what comes out of their mouth, they don't stop talking, but they don't stop talking about spiritual things.
That's right.
And that's just the way it is. That's my only hope. I'm not going to be a Vipassana master. It's just not going to happen in this lifetime. Okay. Raghunath's going into seclusion.
So he was saying that that Vidura's questions, they must have been very purposeful. They must have been on the highest level and approved by learned circles.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The king did not forbid his son Dushasana's abominable action.
Skip 2 verses.
Yeah. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, the great sage Sukadeva Goswami was highly experienced and was pleased with the king. Thus being questioned by the king, he said to him, please hear the topics attentively.
All right.
Sukadeva Goswami said, King Jrastra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons. See, he was already blind, but they're using this play on words. He became blind in his consciousness.
So who's King Dhritarashtra?
Dhritarashtra he inherited the kingdom from his brother, from Arjuna's father, from Yudhishthira's father. He inherited it when he died untimely. And even though he's the oldest brother and should have been the king, he was actually born physically blind. And therefore, the kings, unlike leaders of nowadays who have like the codes to the nuclear arsenal, the king would be the first on the battlefield. How many leaders of the world would be the first on the battlefield who would be pressing the buttons for war if they had to go themselves or send their children to fight? Generally, they're like, okay, we're going to go to war and you guys fight. So Dhritarashtra inherited this kingdom from Pandu. And that's where they get the name, the 5 Pandavas.
And so your point was that although he was elder, he wasn't the king because he was blind. He couldn't.
Because he was blind and he couldn't actually. Even he was actually a very great warrior, but it wasn't a proper position having that handicap. So he didn't become the king. Pandu did. But he also was blind in other ways. He didn't have the appropriate discernment that when his sons, right, we get affection for our children, but if your sons are doing something wrong, you got to call them out, and he would not call them out. And because of that, the sons controlled the father. And it was actually the sons that told Vidura that he has to get out. And it was like completely disrespectful.
So
And
yeah, so Vidura is Dhritarashtra's brother.
Dhritarashtra's brother and Duryodhana's uncle.
Yeah.
And Dushasana's uncle.
Okay.
And
So,
Dushasana and Duryodhana, these guys were real troublemakers.
yes. So
Real troublemakers.
we're hearing about Vidura, but in hearing about Vidura, we're going to hear about him in one sense in contrast with his brother, the king Dhritarashtra, the blind king, and he'll also be the advisor of the blind king, and so this is being laid out right now. So why don't we go ahead and read that again? Text 6.
The king did not forbid Dushasana's abominable action of
Well,
grabbing
hold on. You still have to read text 6, right? Did you read it?
Sorry
6?
about that. No, you know what? This is called the mode of passion. The mode of passion means you are jumping ahead. My whole life is jumping ahead. Pull it back, Raghu. Make that be your makeover Monday. One step at a time. Chew your food. Finish chewing, then take another bite. This is my life lesson here right now.
Okay, you're 55, right?
I'm 55. I still haven't learned. Chew the food, finish, swallow, then take the next bite.
Okay.
Whew, this is big today. Sri Sukadeva, so text 6, Sukadeva Goswami said, King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires.
That was his real blindness.
That was his real blindness. Yes, beautiful. To nourish his dishonest sons. Correct them, don't nourish them. And thus he set fire to the lacquer house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas.
So Dhritarashtra allowed his sons to create a plot where, in the guise of offering a palace to their cousins, Arjuna and Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, it was really a scheme, a plot to kill them all by lighting that house on fire. That house was like super flammable, and the whole idea was to kill their cousins.
Well, this is, by the way, if you've been around this culture for a while, you might have heard of. There's a famous story, the House of Lack. The House of Lack. The House of Lack. The House of Lack. You know what I mean? And then finally, after reading that for so many years, I remember coming to the conclusion, like, what the hell is lack?
Lacquer.
I've never, I've been talking like we all know what lack is. What is the House of Lack? What is lack? And it wasn't until about 6 years ago that I learned actually what lack is. Do you know what lack is?
Well, it's like like we have polyurethane now. It's kind of like seals.
Well, that's what it
right?
is. That's what it is. I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but they have it. It's a whole art in Rajasthan where they and I was watching these guys create like jewelry out of this, like it's like a polyurethane type of thing, but I guess it's a natural resin. Yeah. And they make beautiful jewelry out of it, and they twist it and shape it and make jewelry and bottles and whatever vases and stuff out of this lack.
And you can seal wood with it, and you can seal like wicker with it, things like that.
Is it an American word? Lack?
Yeah, lacquer.
All right, maybe I was the only one who didn't know what it was. But anyway, it's used in an artistic way, but it's highly flammable. And they built this palace completely out of this stuff. And they said, hey guys, I know you guys have been working hard lately, so we got this Airbnb for you guys. Yeah, I want you to go there. And they sent them to this Airbnb that was made out of completely flammable material. Yeah. And they waited a month for them to get really comfortable. And then they lit it on fire.
Well, that was the plan.
Well, they did light it on fire, but
no.
They got tipped off by Vidura.
Well, but actually, yeah, I mean, that's a whole long story. But the fact was, yeah, as they were going to travel to that place to live in that home, Vidura was speaking in code to Yudhishthira.
You know what that code was called?
No, I don't.
Malech Bas.
Oh yeah, Malech Bas. Okay.
Basya is means the language, like Hindi Basya, or Braj Bas. If someone speaks the language in Vrindavan, they call it you speak Braj Bas, right? Yeah. Braj Bas. Braj Bas. Yeah. So this Malech Bas is sort of like a street talk, like Malech. It's sort of like,
but others didn't understand it.
Yeah, under it was like a little.
And even
Yeah.
even within the language, the message was coded.
Yeah, yeah, it was sort of in riddles.
Yeah.
And Yudhisthira understood. Yudhisthira was expert at riddle deciphering. Truthfully, right?
Yeah.
He was-
And so they had like, these are people that had this kind of like, code clearance kind of, they're on the highest levels of government, and they knew different codes. And so,
yeah, and so okay.
but
so
the point was that the brother of Vidura, he was blinded. He was not only blind physically, but he was blind spiritually. He couldn't accept. He was too attached to his own sons, even though they're evil. So much to the point that he not only didn't protect his own nephews, but he even allowed this plot to kill them to take place.
Sure.
Okay.
In the name, and this ongoing. These are ongoing realities. These archetypes, these people, they're showing an ongoing reality, which is I love so much that I let this person walk all over me. This is like a parent of a drug addict, the parent of an alcoholic, a parent. They want to help their child, and the child, and they and instead just enable the child to ruin their life and ruin the life of everybody else. Yeah. This is a perfect codependent story of a parent. Okay, so what are we on? Text 7 now?
Text 7.
The king did not forbid his son Dushasana's abominable action of grabbing the hair of Draupadi, the wife of the godly king Yudhisthira, even though her tears washed the red dust of her breast. What?
Because this kumkum is like a powder, right. Red powder.
Yes.
And apparently, it was like a cosmetic thing. Apparently, women would cover the upper portion.
I think they like sort of like
splash a little of that on.
Splash a little on.
Yeah.
Look a little attractive.
I assume that that's being mentioned because she was crying so much that even down her chest it was running through that. And,
It's like a red dust.
Yeah.
Like a red dust you put on your hair. Women put in their part in their hair.
So these were the crimes, the horrible crimes that the blind king allowed, right? That he allowed his sons to try to kill their own cousins, his nephews in the house of Lac. He allowed his
molest
the second eldest son, Dushasana, to drag Draupadi, the wife of the Pandavas, into this public assembly to abuse her. He made no, he didn't object.
He didn't object. Yeah. Yudhisthira, who was born without any enemy.
So now Yudhisthira is anyway, I think most of us know Yudhisthira now. So.
Well, I think it's important to say, it's not like he had no enemy. It doesn't mean people didn't like him.
Right.
He doesn't have any enemies.
He doesn't see anyone as his enemy.
He doesn't. Yeah, that's the thing. If you are a great person, that doesn't mean people are not going to like you. Matter of fact, great people often get people who don't like them. There's a lot of great people because there's envious people of the world. You can do many wonderful things. There'll still be people like, yeah, this person's a jerk. This person's insincere. No matter how good you are, you're not going to escape people hating your guts for no good reason.
And Yudhisthira is a great example of that.
Yeah, but Yudhisthira, in his eyes, he didn't even hate the people that hated him. And that's the power of Bhakti-yoga, right?
Yes.
That's the power.
He's commonly referred to in this way, Ajatashatru, right?
Has no enemies. That's your Sanskrit goodie glossary. Sanskrit glossary goodie for the day. Mara, can you put that up on the board, please? Ajatashatru, one who has no enemies. Once you start thinking in this world of this person's my enemy or this person's a jerk, that means I got issues.
Yeah, and it means I'll never have a peaceful mind that can become deeply absorbed in yoga. Meditation.
We can ask ourselves that right now. Who are your enemies? Who's your enemy, people? If you've got enemies, you got work to do.
Let it go.
Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Is that a song?
What did I do?
I don't know. My kids sing that.
I've heard it. I think it's from some movie or
like,
something like that, right?
I think it's from like Frozen or something.
Yeah, I think it's from Frozen too.
It's a popular one. Is that for kids or is that for adults?
You know,
For
it's one of
kids?
those nowadays kid
kids.
movies. Like, they're really good for adults. They make them with adult.
They're
type
so
of
good that
humor,
the
I
adults
think.
get into them.
I think so. Okay. Eustace, who was born without an enemy, was unfairly defeated in gambling. But because he had taken the vow of truthfulness, he went to the forest. When he came back in due course and begged the return of his rightful share of the kingdom, he was refused by Jrastra, who was overwhelmed by illusion. Oh
Okay.
man, I wanted to ask you a good gambling question, but
Mhm.
you wanted me to finish all these verses, and we're going slow.
Well, we could do it tomorrow too. But if you want to ask me the gambling question, I'll take it. But let's just point out now. Here's a third fault of the blind king, right? Not only did he allow, the plot to try to kill the Pandavas. Not only did he allow his son to drag the Pandavas' wife Draupadi into that public scene to abuse her. Also, after the Pandavas were unfairly banished, and exiled for 13 years. When they came back, it was Dhritarashtra's duty to make sure that the Pandavas were reestablished,
Mm.
as rulers of the kingdom. He didn't allow it. Right.
Now, can I ask my question?
Yeah, that's the question.
All right, here's the question. Prabhupada laid out these rules he called the 4 regulative principles. It's not something you hear about overtly, but Prabhupada sort of coined the phrase. No meeting, no intoxication, no illicit sex. And then he throws this like, we can, okay, all right, I can sort of get
He
those.
throws it
He
in.
throws a curveball at us, sort of like, and no gambling. So, because we say that, and I understand. I lived in Reno for a short time in my
Did you?
life.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I did. I lived with the band 7 Seconds. Ever heard of
7
them?
seconds. They were from Reno.
I
That's
lived
right.
with those guys. They were from Reno. And so anyway, there was this people would literally gamble their entire paychecks away. And gambling addiction's massive, especially where it's legal.
Mhm.
But, it's offshore gambling. And I get it. Gambling's a problem. It's addictive. You can ruin your life quick. People gamble away. I've had friends who are gambling addicts. They've lost their homes. They've lost everything. They've lost their families. I get it. Why is gambling so wrong? And isn't any type of investment gambling? Isn't the stock market gambling? Isn't putting your money in a CD or a money market or a mutual
IRA?
fund? IRA. Isn't that
I don't
gambling?
even know.
Isn't the idea of I want something for nothing? I don't want to do the work. I don't want to like carve this thing and sell it. And I've worked and all my effort and my love is in this. I built this. I really love furniture builders. I built this chair. I built this shaker chair, and I'm selling it with all my hard work. Yeah, you worked hard. I'm going to give you money for that. But here, I've got some extra money. I'm going to give it to this financial manager. He's going to invest it in God knows what, and then I'm going to get the return on investment. Isn't that a type of gambling?
Raghunath, those are excellent questions that you've posed about gambling. But because we're out of time, we're going to have to come back and answer them tomorrow. It's a cliffhanger.
It's a cliffhanger. Alrighty. Well, that being said,
Set it off. Happy birthday, guy.
Thank you guys for the birthday wishes.
Is someone making a cake? Bridge make a cake for you?
I'm going on a date today when the kids are in school. That's what I'm doing for my birthday.
All right.
Thanks for Lear Juno. Thanks everybody who came to the 6 Pillars class the other day. That was fun. Workshop. And today we have Claire Weatherly doing a 6:30 Patreon class. I'm teaching at supersoulyoga.com.
She took 2 weeks off, Claire.
What's that?
She's back, but she's doing a
she's
10 a.m. class.
Oh, 10 a.m. All right.
Yeah.
I'm alone there. I'm alone. 6:30 this morning. If you want a strong vinyasa class, you can join me at supersoulyoga.com. And thanks for everybody for supporting the podcast. Really appreciate it. Patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. If you like what we're doing, you can support us to help keep this going through that. Thanks everybody. And thanks for all the birthday greetings. And
We
thanks
love
for the
you,
third
Raghu,
Cantel.
on your birthday. Just have to
Love
say
you
that.
guys too.